Okay, let's be real. If you've ever been that person staring at a textbook at 3 in the morning, you're surrounded by coffee cups, and you're just wondering why absolutely nothing is sticking in your brain, you are definitely not alone. We always get told to just study more, but what if the real secret isn't about time at all? What if it's about strategy? Let's dive in and figure out how to actually study. So first, let's look at this classic scenario. I bet we all know these two students. You've got student A, who just seems to cruise through everything, right? They study for like half an hour a day, and somehow they're acing all their classes. And then you have student B, who is grinding it out for 4 hours every single day, sacrificing sleep, friends, you name it, and they're still struggling just to get by.
It's not about who's smarter, and it's for sure not about who's more dedicated. The real difference is how they study, not how long. So what is the secret sauce that student A is using?
To get to student A's secret, we first have to talk about this huge myth that trips up, I think, most of us. Let's call it the productivity illusion.
This right here is the heart of the problem. You know, we feel so productive, sitting with our books for hours on end, highlighting pages, rewriting our notes, but that feeling of effort, it doesn't actually mean the information is sticking. A lot of the time, it's just slipping right through our fingers.
And this leads us right into something called the consumption trap. You know, schools often push us this way, telling us to study for 3 hours or to review an entire chapter. So we start obsessing over the input, the number of hours we put in, without ever stopping to check what's actually staying in our brains.
And this quote just nails it. It is a really, really dangerous connection to make in our minds. We just assume that doing the act of studying means good grades are going to follow. You know, it's kind of like going to the gym and just using terrible form for years. Sure, you're putting in the effort, but you're not getting the results. You might even be hurting yourself in the process.
So if putting in more time isn't the answer, then what is? Well, that brings us to our first major philosophy, the idea of studying smarter, not harder. Now check this out. This learning pyramid shows something pretty shocking. Just look at the retention rates for passive methods. Reading, only 10%. Listening to a lecture, a measly 5%. But now, compare that to the active methods. Just discussing the topic with someone gets you to 50%, and actually practicing, doing the thing, that jumps all the way up to 75%. The difference is absolutely huge. So the crucial shift we need to make is from passive to active learning. Passively rereading a chapter is like trying to fill a bucket that's full of holes. It's just not going to work. But active methods, things like practice tests or trying to explain the concepts out loud to a friend, that's what patches those holes, so the knowledge actually stays in.
Okay, so what does an active learning strategy actually look like in practice? Well, here's a really simple, powerful framework. First, test yourself before you even start reviewing to figure out where your weak spots are. Then, use tools like practice questions to really wrestle with the material. And here's a great test. Try explaining it out loud. If you can teach it, you really truly get it. And finally, a quick review right before bed can help your brain lock in that information while you sleep.
Now, that smarter, not harder approach is really powerful, for sure, but there's another school of thought out there that says that's only half the story. This second philosophy, it isn't about finding clever shortcuts, it's all about building raw endurance. With this mindset, you treat studying like you're training for a marathon. A runner doesn't just wait until they feel motivated, right? They train every single day to build up their stamina. This approach sees studying as a non-negotiable habit, like brushing your teeth. You're building up your mental muscles to handle these intense, long sessions.
And here it is, the core belief that directly challenges that whole study smarter idea. This philosophy argues that, especially for really tough subjects, there is just no substitute for volume. The more time you spend practicing, the more questions you're going to get right. It's a simple equation. More time equals higher marks, period.
This mindset is absolutely laser-focused on one thing: getting the best grades possible. The goal isn't necessarily deep, long-term learning, it's about winning the game of school. And that means making some really strategic, almost ruthless decisions like skipping ungraded homework if it won't help on the test, or even using class time to study for a more important subject. It's a super pragmatic, results-driven approach. A classic technique from this endurance mindset is something called the grid method. And yeah, it looks incredibly tedious, but it's pure mental weightlifting. By rewriting a concept over and over and over, you're pushing past simple memorization. You're using muscle memory to burn it into your brain until it becomes completely, totally automatic.
Okay, so we've got these two really powerful but kind of opposing ideas. Study smarter with these high retention techniques, or study harder with disciplined endurance. So, which one is right?
And the answer, of course, is that you don't have to choose. The most effective students, they don't just study harder or smarter. They build a personal system that combines the discipline of the marathon runner with the strategy of the active learner.
And this all starts with the 80-20 rule. The basic idea is that about 20% of your study efforts are going to produce 80% of your results. So your first job is to figure out what that 20% is for you. Is it doing past papers? Is it mastering a specific type of problem? This is the smarter part of the equation, figuring out where to focus your hard work for the biggest possible payoff.
Now, the tool that makes all of this possible is what we call deep work. This isn't about how long your study session is, it's about its intensity. It's a state of complete distraction-free focus that lets you get more done in 2 hours of deep work than you could in a whole day of just distracted, half-hearted effort.
So here's how you can put it all together and create your own personal system. Start with that 80-20 rule to find your most critical tasks. Then schedule these intense, distraction-free, deep work sessions to get them done. Set a very specific goal for each session and promise yourself a reward, like watching Netflix, but only after you're finished. That combination of smart focus and disciplined effort is the real key.
So after exploring all these different philosophies, the most important question isn't really which one is best, but which one is right for you. And that brings us to the final question you have to ask yourself. Are you trying to build a system for true, deep learning that you're going to retain for the rest of your life? Or are you building a system that's just designed to win the game of school and get the highest possible grades? There's no single right answer here, but you can't build an effective system until you know what you're actually building it for.